It's a mess in this attic, lot going on, but there ain't no need to panic. Come on up and join, we getting wild, getting manic. Spitting truth for all you fanatics. Every week got something new to say. Ain't no filter, this shit coming straight from the brain. It's coming straight from the brain. Yeah, it's coming straight from the brain.
What's up, everybody? Today is Friday, January 28th, 2022. This is A Talk in the Attic, which of course means I'm your host, Kirk Ross, coming back at you today with another interview. That's 2 in a row. If you haven't listened to Dan Fedrosi on the state of NCAA athletics, please go back and check that one. It dropped last Sunday. Today I have a special one in store for you, a very esteemed guest, a very successful guest. His name is JEFF LAMBERT. Jeff has a successful background running Lambert & Associates here in Grand Rapids, one of the top 40 PR firms in the country and the largest in Michigan. And through that background, he's now in the midst of a new startup called Tiicker. That's Tiicker with 2 I's, Tiicker. And I'm excited about it. Jeff's excited about it. They've been in action now, released to the public for about a year and a half now. And this platform essentially connects the very valuable and loyal retail investors with public companies that they actually own or own shares in. I'm not going to give you any more information because Jeff does a better job of explaining it. We'll let him do the talking. Jeff is a cool guy. He's a dad joke connoisseur. He's the brother-in-law of a good friend of the program, Andrew Van Timmeren, or Andrew from the Woods, episode 11. And he's an aspiring DJ. He's already got a DJ name picked out. So check it out. This is a great episode. You're going to learn a lot about self-awareness, mindful leadership, and what it means to fail. Really, does it mean anything? Is there even such a thing? Find out. Let's jump into this thing. Let's start the show. All right, folks, I'm here with JEFF LAMBERT. Jeff, thanks for coming to the attic.
Thanks for having me. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, so we have a connection. Andrew Van Timmeren, Andrew from the Woods, episode 11, for those of you who are big fans of the show.
Shout out to my brother-in-law.
That's your brother-in-law, so he's one of the greatest dudes around. I won't say what you're saying off camera.
He's okay. He's okay.
Yeah, everyone has, he's hit or miss with people, frankly.
Right.
So we've been kind of trying to set this up. You're a busy guy, so why don't we talk a little bit about, before we get into what you're really spending most of your time on now, let's talk a little bit about your background, how you got to this point where you own several businesses. People would look at you as an absolute success story. I'm sure I do. I certainly do. But how did you get there? It's a lot of steps before that happened. So
Yeah, for sure. And again, thanks for having me. This is really, I love doing this conversational stuff. And my story is some unintended success. I look back at when I first started my business, my agency in my basement. So I wasn't in the attic, I was in the basement. And, we called it Lambert, Edwards and Associates.
Okay.
And the Edwards actually lived right down the street from you. So
2 hours down, you said,
yeah,
right?
Spent some time in his house too, but he would come to the basement. And the associate was the dog. And it was really, though, we named the firm to be an agency, even though there was only 2 of us. And
right.
Fast forward to 20 years later, we were the largest PR and marketing agency in Michigan. We're a top 40 in the country.
Wow.
We have some specialties in investor relations, and which is really PR and marketing for public companies, and that's really what spawned this other little thing I'm doing called Tiicker, right? So shout out to the Tiicker. That's in my
you
mug.
Just covered it with your hand though.
Yeah, my buddy from Miller would say, label out. But yeah, so Tiicker was really the outgrowth of that journey, but it also was solving an issue. But it also wouldn't have happened if I didn't get into coaching, as in being coached. I'm an executive coach, and he's changed my life. And he's the coach. I call myself an athlete.
Yeah.
But that experience really transformed me as a leader.
When did you start? When did you pick that up?
About 3.5 years ago.
That was kind of when you started hearing a lot about coaching starting around then.
Yeah,
3 or 4
and it
years
was,
ago.
I was a college athlete all through, high school and younger years. I had coaching and really, obviously benefited from it.
Right.
Professional athletes have coaches, but it never occurred to me. I was the president and CEO. I don't need a coach. I'm supposed to have all the answers. And so it took me 20 years. I'm a little dense. It took me 20 years to figure it out. And I was in this session with a bunch of other president and CEOs. I'm in an organization called YPO, Young Presidents Organization. Mm-hmm. And, you ever have this feeling where like you're the only one that they're talking to?
Of course.
Like I have this at church occasionally, but in this setting, it was, man, he's talking to me.
Right.
And so I went and talked to him after, and I said, I think I want to be coached. Mm-hmm. And it took me a year to say yes. And it took me a year to say yes because I knew it would take sacrifice and commitment, and he's an all-in kind of guy. He says, 100% commitment. 100% commitment as in you show up every single time on time. Yep. You do everything that you say you're going to do, and he doesn't hold me accountable. He talks about leaving a space for me to give an account. I give an account of what I've achieved because I want to go to the next level, and the next level of the video game is harder. And it takes, again, a different level of leadership to get there. Yeah. So coaching is absolutely changed my life. And his name's Jason Jaggard. Shout out to Jason. I was on his podcast a year or so ago. But anybody that's listening, coaching is very impactful. And just like in any other industry, you will grow as a leader. You'll grow as an individual in any aspect of your life.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in that CEO president role, I can imagine, because when I've never been at that level, and you get to a
CEO
point
of this podcast.
Well, that's true, but you get to a point in a company where you don't really have peers, and if you don't have peers, then how do you bounce things off of people? And you end up becoming kind of isolated in that way. So I can see why bouncing ideas off of somebody that's outside of your group and outside of that can give a different perspective has to be a valuable thing.
Yeah, it's that imposter syndrome. Should I be here? I'm supposed to have the answer, but I don't really, but I can't admit that to anyone. Right. And that's really, a coach can be very helpful. Other peer groups, again, YPO is a good example of that. Yeah. We all go into the meetings and the world with this lens of we're the boss. We must have the right answer. We have to show up that way. Right. And I think authenticity is really the new badass boss mode.
Of
and
course.
I think that's really important. Is self-awareness is really essential, I think, to good leaders. And so again, I continue to grow every single day.
Yeah, yeah. You go through your entire youth phase when you're getting coached and taught, and your parents still have control over you, and you move out on your own, and then you're done with that. And you think you have to do it on your own, and people wonder why there's development stops at a certain point. So when you were in that phase before the coaching, which ultimately led to Tiicker, and we'll get into that, of course, you were, what exactly is the day to day at one of the largest PR firms in the country?
The day-to-day was being a practitioner. The day-to-day is that client counsel, again, helping them grow their business through communications or marketing or digital and lots of different tactics. But ultimately, those tactics have to drive a business outcome. And so we're really a business PR and marketing firm. Right. And that was always our differentiation, was we came from this lens of public companies. So our performance is in the Wall Street Journal every single day, right? How is the stock price doing? And so that's the ultimate bar. And so we kind of applied that business approach to brands of smaller size or smaller scale.
And so you're dealing with investor relations kind of things in that capacity. You're dealing with the press, or all the above.
So all the above. So press relations, press announcements or press releases, crisis and issues. Bad things happen, and you want to communicate those, but you also want to turn it into a one-day story, not a one-year story. And so there's that sort of thing. And investor relations really is communicating to an investor audience. So it's very similar to PR, except the difference is if you miscommunicate in PR, it's a bad story. In investor relations, you might go to jail. Because there's insider trading, and you have to be careful of what you talk about. But that level of scrutiny, I think, holds a lot of people back, and so they're on the defensive and say the least amount, when really investors want to know the context. And that's, one of the most loyal investor groups are individuals like us. So The individual investor is brand loyal. They'll hold the stock longer. They want to know what's going on, and oftentimes they shop those products. And that was really the origin of Tiicker. So Tiicker, as you saw on my coffee cup, with two eyes.
Of course.
And the two eyes are for we focus both on the public company and the retail investor, but also the lenses that you look through, which is I as an investor want to be more connected to the brands I love. The company wants to know their individual investors, but SEC reporting and regulations around brokerage holdings make that impossible.
Yeah.
So 95%, 98% of investors today in a public company are invisible to the public companies that they own.
Right.
And so to take a Michigan example, Whirlpool. So Whirlpool has hundreds of thousands of investors.
On a percentage basis, how are holdings comparative, like from an institutional perspective?
Yeah, so that's the reason why everyone's ignored this audience.
Yeah.
So you ignore the audience because an institution would buy $1 million at a time of the stock, individual buy $1,000 at a time.
Right.
And so if you spend your time going after the big fish, that's obviously more opportunity. Right. And so investor relations professionals and CFOs and CEOs have been trained. I can't really find the retail investor, that individual everyday investor, and it's really inefficient to go $1,000 at a time versus $1 million at a time.
Right.
And so they've ignored it, and so it's been an audience that's ignored. However, in the case of, again, Whirlpool, they have hundreds of thousands of investors, but only show 10,000 of them in their 10K or annual report. And so it's not occurred to them, and particularly on the marketing side, wouldn't it be great for us to activate these owners?
Right.
Who are they going to buy? They're going to buy a Whirlpool product over a GE product if they're a shareholder. And so Whirlpool is the latest public company to add a stock perk. So, hey, all you listeners, if you own Whirlpool stock and you've owned it for 30 days, you will get their employee discount on Amana, KitchenAid, Whirlpool products. And that's, again, it should have the privilege of ownership. And that's really what Tiicker is all about, is connecting brands that you love into that stock owner to ultimately get perks and rewards.
Yeah, so it's beneficial both ways.
It is. It's a mutually beneficial relationship.
That's nice. So your service, Tiicker, is providing a safe playground for these kind of things to happen in a way, right? Because
there's no regulation against it. It's simply that it's limited by reporting. So the reporting, if you own it in an online brokerage firm or in a self-directed account, so think Robinhood, TD Ameritrade, Fidelity, Schwab, you aren't visible. You own the stock, and your portfolio says you own Wolverine Worldwide or Whirlpool or Gentex, but the company doesn't know. It's Kirk. They don't know who you are, and so there's nothing wrong with it. It's simply not possible. It's not possible. And so what we did is create a platform, again, Tiicker.com, 2 eyes, or app, Android and iOS, and you can connect any brokerage account. That will show us and show our clients, oh, you own this stock, and you have 10 shares and you've owned it for 30 days or 60 days, you get a discount on a new Ford vehicle or a Carnival Cruise, again, or get some cool swag from the XFC MMA fighting. Yeah. And so it really is the verification that was never been done. And how do you get people to opt in? You give them rewards.
Right. Yeah. So the companies, the public companies are incentivized to give rewards so they can get the names of the people. And the people are incentivized to sign up because they get discounts or whatever the reward is. It
really is that simple, but there's no such thing as shareholder loyalty, even though you have airline loyalty and hotel loyalty and your Gap card and your Target card. But ownership is even more loyalty than being a consumer. And so it's just, again, we're just kind of filling this gap. And that's where it came from, is 25 years in investor relations, never being able to do this. And then fintech and the technology world caught up enough where we can do it.
Yeah, when you started your basement firm, your agency, I mean, Instagram wasn't around. I mean, the internet was around, I guess, but it wasn't really heavily used.
I love telling the kids these days, hey, we used to go to the library to do research. I would fax things.
Yeah.
That was real life. And we shared an email account in my first job, and it's just. It seems silly now, but just like our parents said, I used to walk uphill both ways. We now say, we used to not have.
That's good. That's
yeah.
good. It'll stop.
It's gonna blow up.
You're good.
Yeah. So just like our parents used to say, they would walk uphill both ways. We now say, we used to do research in the library. We used to fax things, and so we still have. I think we just took our fax number off of our business cards a few years ago.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure most of our staff today have ever used one.
Yeah, that's great. My wife's an attorney, so we still have to use fax machines.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are? No, you have to go somewhere to find one. But
I know it makes me sound old.
So, but you had to have seen such a massive shift in the first off the cycle of news. So PR stories now can happen so quick.
Absolutely. I mean, it now is responsive. Now you can also solve them quicker because you have a giant megaphone. You don't have to get people to come to a physical press conference or
Right.
call into a conference call line. You can do it instantaneously, live stream it on the web.
Yeah.
And that's the good news and bad news because everything is on. I can't imagine if someone had iPhones in college when I was the things that I was doing. I'm glad that they didn't.
Right.
I'm glad that they do that. My kids are in college, but I think it really is technology is generally good, but there are gaps in the market where it's not been fully applied, and that's really what Tiicker is. And it's also this convergence of you've seen more everyday investors than ever, and that's no surprise. But the Robinhood effect of free trading that then was replicated across the entire universe, the dollar number in just the big 5 online brokerages. So Schwab, Fidelity, E-Trade, Ameritrade, and Robinhood. Robinhood, by the way, is the 5th largest. They're not the largest, even though they have the best PR machine going.
Well, they had the GameStop thing.
That's
did wonders
right.
for them.
That's right. But those 5 2 years ago were $8.6 trillion. Trillion. At the end of 2021, that was $14.6 trillion.
Wow.
So it's really an amazing force of magnitude, and yet as the audience has gotten bigger, it's not gotten no easier to reach them.
Right.
And so where we find that that sweet spot is sure the investor relations team wants that engaged investor, but the marketers are like, hey, clown over there in investor relations, why don't you tell me we had hundreds of thousands or millions of consumers? I'm trying to figure out how to reach these consumers every day, and they're sitting in our stock as owners who would love to drive past Burger King and go to McDonald's because they're a shareholder.
Yeah, that's it. And people always want to share what they're into.
For sure.
And investing is no different. They rarely talk about their failures in investing, but when they're on a good stock, they love to tell their friends.
Absolutely.
And so you can see how those are valuable mouthpieces for these companies.
Well, it's the same as anything else in social. You only talk about the wins.
Exactly.
But it is a great mouthpiece, and it's a huge audience. And so those combined is really what we're trying to unlock for public companies.
Yeah, and so Tiicker's pretty new. Right? It's pretty much in its infancy to some extent, right?
We launched a year and a half ago publicly in terms of the app and the web-based platform. Kind of had about a year planning. But go back to my coaching, I don't start Tiicker without coaching. It was really I was known for being the shiny object guy. It was like a badge of honor that I had all these ideas. But what's a good idea if it never goes executed? And so I had Tiicker as an idea 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Didn't do anything about it until 3 years ago. And again, now we've got some great momentum and really awesome interest, and it's gonna create a new category of shareholder loyalty. But it's only an idea unless you follow through.
So do you have? Is there IP on that? I mean, is it going to be copycatted?
There's IP that we filed for, and there's other things around it that aren't the same, but it's also a race to be the creator, and I don't necessarily have to be first. I just want to be the last one standing.
Yeah. So if you don't mind sharing, if you don't want to, that's fine. What was the breakthrough with coaching that really? Finally, was there some turning point or something, a tipping point where you finally said, okay, I know how to do this now, or what changed?
I think there's two things, and again, all the shout out to my coach, Jason Jaggard, but the two things. One is this thing he talks about, intuitive fence, what you think is possible. So I would set these annual goals. By the way, for 20 years, I didn't set goals because I just do stuff and I don't need to write them down. And
I'm like you. Like
it was again. I took that as that's just the way I am. And oh, by the way, I'm the CEO, president. I could do that. I can get away with it. It's not okay for you to do, but it's okay for me to do it. And so this idea of what's possible is look outside your intuitive fence. So as an example, at the time we had made acquisitions on the Lambert PR side, and we had made one every 3 or 4 years. And so we made one in 2017, and we were going to make another one. I was like, this is going to be a big deal. We're going to make one. We're going to make an acquisition 2 years in a row. And he said, well, what if you made 2? Is that possible? And what if I put a gun to your head? Oh, of course I could.
Yeah, right.
Okay, let's just play for a minute and figure out how you would do that. Well, by the time you're done figuring it out, it seems much more possible.
Yeah. And
so that was an example of kind of how, that process of going through. Another concept is upgraded beliefs. So what changed in me was I looked at shiny object, kind of in the quiet of my own home. I looked at that as a real negative about myself. It was this, I outwardly said, I'm the shiny object guy. I got great ideas. But then I felt guilty because they didn't go executed. And so I had all these ideas and I wasn't the follow through guy. Well, that's just about changing the perception of yourself.
Yeah,
and so,
internally.
Yeah. And so I created these upgraded beliefs about what does this look like in my life? And one of those is I miss out to achieve more. This idea that sometimes I'm not going to, do that fun thing, or I'm going to jump into a meeting that I don't belong because I want to achieve more. I want to go faster. And so changing the negative into a positive. So I'm still the shiny object guy, except that I'm known for how I execute versus being known for how I don't.
Yeah, that's cool. So what does a coaching session look like? Is it talking? I mean,
it's actually it's really a conversation. I was on Zoom before Zoom was cool.
Yeah.
So he's out in California. I see him a couple times a year in person, but it's really a coaching call is 45 minutes to an hour, and it really is a conversation where he's pressing into my own goals. It's not, he doesn't tell me what to do, and that was a misnomer I had about some coaches are that they're really an advisor.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking for that. I'm looking for pressing outside of what I want to achieve.
Right.
And so that's what he does is we talk about commitments. I make the commitments. He doesn't make them for me, but he invites me into bigger ones.
Yeah, exactly.
And so what's the commitment going to be today? It's going to be this. Well, what if you 2x that? And I've started carrying around $2 bills. I'm actually collecting them. So if you got any laying around, I'll buy them off you for $2.10. But
that's a good deal for me.
But the $2 bill is for me, it's synonymous of what if you doubled it? And what if you doubled the goal, or what if you doubled the pace, or doubled the opportunity? And it also has Jefferson on it, so I'm kind of like I like that too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, little Jeff action.
Little Jeff action.
Yeah. So when did you have to raise money for Tiicker? I assume
we did. So we raised. We did a $2 million raise at the beginning. So we're actually looking at raising capital again, probably in the next several months. And really that is to go faster and bigger. Yeah. And it's really great to lay out an idea and to have people believe in you, but it also is a lot of responsibility. Now it's other people's money, so it's actually much weightier than I expected it to be. I want this to return significantly, and so it has, and now it's going to be what's the next level that we go.
So the response has been good, I imagine, so far?
It's been very good, and we're we tripled the size of the platform in 21 over 2020. Continued momentum with big brands. We're all the kind of metrics that we like to track are heading in the right direction.
That's
and
good.
That's the key thing is delivering on what you promise. But my goal is to be the next Michigan unicorn, and it sounds lofty, but I believe it can happen. Now my son likes to say, "Well, why a unicorn? Why not a decacorn?" I mean, that's the current unicorn. Everyone's a unicorn. So we'll see. But it's to hire a great team. I think we've got a great idea, but instead of holding on to it and keeping it to myself, which I did forever, it really is sharing it with others. And including investors, including the community, and so really excited about the momentum.
So from a sales perspective, you're looking to you have two things you have to do. You have to sign public companies, and you have to also get, I guess, the trading platforms. But so are you really working with the trading platforms, or you're not working directly with the consumer?
Yeah, so we have every trading platform, pretty much. There are a couple that are not connected to our platform, and we're working on that. So we have a back-end partner that does a lot of that, but we have to build custom software. We've stacked on a whole bunch of software onto that, and we also have to convince companies to offer shareholder rewards. And it's not commonplace, and so it takes a long sales cycle.
A lot of education.
Yeah. At the same time, we want more consumers to come to the platform. So we're getting 50,000 people a month to Tiicker, but only 10% of that traffic is converting. Why is that? Because they come and see there's not a perk in their stock
for their portfolio.
There's not enough perks, so it's build more perks, which attracts more consumers, which more consumers attracts more companies. So there is this ball rolling downhill kind of effect, and that's really what we're trying to get kind of over the lip and start the ball rolling.
So what's that pitch look like? I mean, you make initial contact with who are you reaching out to at these public companies?
There's kind of two sides of the house: investor relations.
Yeah.
And again, they're trained to kind of ignore retail investors and the everyday investors. They don't want the phone call from Pop saying, "Hey, I own 100 shares, and can you talk to me for an hour?" So they tend to avoid it. But the flip side is the CMO, the marketing side, the digital team, who are scratching their heads and wondering why no one ever told them they have 100,000 owners or 500,000 owners or 1 million owners.
Right.
And some of these stocks, some of the biggest brands, the bigger the brand, the bigger the retail ownership.
Yeah, like an Apple, for instance. I mean, there's so many people that get into
Millions,
that. Millions,
20 million.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, Amazon, 30 million. And people, individuals who many of them are obviously Amazon shoppers. Others would like to be more Amazon users if they got a perk of being an owner.
Yeah. Why wouldn't they get a perk? It makes perfect sense, right?
It makes perfect sense.
Okay, I did get a warning. Not even a warning. I got a hint from Andrew, our mutual contact, that he's a dad joke expert.
I've been telling dad jokes for 30 years.
Well before you were even a dad.
Well, I'll tell you. Well before I was a dad, my first dad joke, which my good friend, my high school friend, she claims that she said it. I'm pretty confident that I did.
Controversy.
But it's, what kind of music did the caveman listen to? Sedimentary rock. So, I mean, it's classic. It's classic.
That's
30 years ago, right?
That would have been good in the caveman times.
Right.
Yeah.
But I actually have a theory about dad jokes and I do them, and my family will attest, we do them at every single dinner table. And I usually start it, and they usually groan, and before you know it, everyone's thinking of them. But I think it actually inspires creativity.
I believe so too.
So you a lot of them can be rhyming, and you find a word that rhymes, and then you kind of append something onto it. But invariably, you throw one out there, and after the groan, it's the wheels are turning, and then it's who can be the next person to tag onto
That's
it.
Awesome.
So
I want to have dinner there sometime.
Yeah. So my daughter who's married and successful, we still trade dad jokes, and at the next dinner table, I'll guarantee we throw them back and forth, and I think it's part of my creative journey, and I think I've hopefully instilled that in my kids.
Yeah, I mean, I think I always kind of grew up as a creative person, and then when I was digging into my program management and engineering type jobs with the Japanese, it tends to suck that creative spirit out of you a little bit.
Yeah,
and so it wasn't until I rediscovered
environmental issues could certainly who you surround yourself with. It's not as funny, and I'll tell you one of the things that I discovered in my travels internationally is that charisma or jokes don't translate.
Right.
And so because so much of it is spontaneity.
Yeah.
And so when you deliver a good dad joke, it happens on the spot.
It's got to be well-timed, and it's very word-centric,
Absolutely.
too.
Absolutely. And so when you're talking, even someone who has some English as a second language, they don't have that ability to process quickly. And it's even worse. I was in China, and I would, kind of offer, funny, humorous things. And by the time it came to the translator, I mean, it wasn't a smile, wasn't an nothing.
How dare you say that?
Obviously, right. So you probably have a better chance of offending than getting a laugh.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I think for the creative, I recently saw a TED Talk by George Land, and I'll send you the link to it if you haven't seen it. But it's NASA did a study. They were trying to figure out how can we teach innovation, because without innovation, America is not going to last. Because their third world countries they're developing nations, I should say, can now manufacture it right along with us. Yep. So without innovation, where do we land? So NASA was trying to figure this out. They took a study of 4 and 5-year-olds, and they gave them some way to evaluate this. I don't know the details of that, but essentially 98% of 4 and 5-year-olds could think with imagination and creativity, and they were so wowed by that. They're like, we didn't expect that kind of number. Yeah. Let's make this longitudinal and check back every 5 years. At 10, 30% of them could. At 15, 12% of them could. And then at 25 to 30 was the final one they did. It was 2% or something. And the point is, we lose that. We're kind of taught to think inside the box or something, and really, if you think about the public education system, it was really invented to get people prepared for factory work. And it's kind of like,
I love the story. So along those lines, I mean, the Dr. Seuss Cat in the Hat. So Theodore Ted Geisel, the Dr. Seuss author, was a cartoonist and an artist, and one of his friends was at a big publisher and challenged him to write a book that would change the trajectory of literacy in America, because it was declining, because books weren't interesting. Right. And so he said, I need you to write a book, but you can only use these 200 approved words.
Is that where Cat in the Hat came from?
That's where Cat in the Hat came from, is the first 2 words that rhymed. And so you think about children's books and the rhyming and that, that kind of that pace and flow is that creativity. And I've seen it so I have older kids and younger kids, and I call the younger kids the littles. And I've seen, even over the last 2 years, this evolution of getting a dad joke or missing it and then suddenly getting it and affirming it, and then they're now
they can create it.
I think if you nurture that at a young age, I think you can change that innovation. Yeah. But it does, if you tamp it down or discourage it, it goes away, and you can rediscover it, but it takes work.
It takes a lot of work. Yeah. It wasn't until I built this place and really started committing. I had to set aside a time to do creative stuff, and you see the benefits across your entire life when you're more creatively fulfilled. At least I do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I think it's evolved. I know the studio continues to evolve. I can't wait to come back when it's so bougie you call the HILTON.
Yeah. With I don't even know what the word is.
Right, the new umlaut or something like that. Yeah,
we'll have to put some, maybe even add an extra I in there.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Well, 2 eyes. You can always add 2 eyes to anything.
So just for recognition, show that back. Show it over here though. Actually.
Yeah. So it's Tiicker with 2 eyes, and obviously it also has kind of a little growth chart in it. Yeah. And we bought the URL. It's the old startup. Is it relatively easy to say, easy to spell, and Tiicker is obviously Tiicker symbol is
synonymous with
synonymous.
Yeah.
And so we're really happy with it. The truth be told, we didn't think about one of the purposes that is now turning into a big part of our platform, and it's going to be an NFT, which is fun. But the first 2 letters of Tiicker, TII, we're using as a prefix for, instead of NASDAQ : NASDAQ symbol, or New York Stock Exchange or the London Stock Exchange. So there's all these different prefixes, right? And so everything is TII. Nice. And so it looks clean, and it's TII : so we trademarked the TII, and then we stumbled on this idea of, what if every user had their own ticker symbol? So you could be Kirk. Yeah. TII Kirk is your cool. Ticker symbol. It's everyone's. Mine's Jefe, because you're the boss. My kids call me Jefe, and I'm the boss, and it's spelled like Jeff. Yeah. But so we actually started researching it, and ticker symbols, because they're only 4 letters or shorter, aren't trademarked. So AAPL, which is Apple's ticker symbol, is not trademarked. NKE, not trademarked. Nike.
None of them.
Tesla, TSLA, not trademarked. Elon. So what we are doing is we're going to NFT individual ticker symbols. So there'll be one Kirk in the world. It'll be an NFT coin, a digital animation, and you can buy swag, or you can do whatever you put on your license plate, whatever you want, turn it into your social handle. Right. But it will be minted on the blockchain, Ethereum blockchain, and there'll be one in the world. And so we're launching that in March. So you heard it here first.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Go to tiicker.com/NFT, and you can get or gift your own ticker symbol.
That's awesome.
Yes,
that's
kind of fun.
Cool.
Obviously, always innovating, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're in a unique position because you're launching the startup. It's launched, but you're going to be growing this thing. But you do have a big background in marketing too. I mean, to some extent, marketing.
I think marketing is marketing is in every industry. You need you need marketing. Again, if you ABC, always be closing, always be selling, and I think that's the marketing is to generate interest.
Yeah.
And so my story on how I landed I have an advertising undergrad from Michigan State, go green, and I actually was accepted at Michigan State to be a veterinarian. Turns out liking animals is not enough to be a vet. So I'm like, I'm decent at writing. I go to the counselor. What are you good at? Well, obviously not science, so the vet's out.
Yeah.
But what if I'm good at writing? How about advertising? And as it turns out, I took one PR class in college, but I lucked into an internship and it worked out. But I'm a marketeer, and that is a skill set, writing and content, that everyone in the world should have some background in, and it's applicable to every single business,
even
every single nonprofit,
even your day-to-day personal life. It helps. Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to get date, you got to market yourself, right?
Exactly.
I mean, everything. It works at every aspect.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something you can. Yeah. So people work on it. You don't expect to sit around and. I spend a lot of time watching sports. I like sports. But I have a little bit of aversion to sports now because I feel like my 20s I spent like hours a week watching these things, and then I wondered why I wasn't really improving my skills in some cases. But if you put the time in to do stuff, I learned how to play the drums and I learned how to play the piano over COVID. I'm not good at either, but you can be an older person and still learn.
You can always grow. I mean, I just turned 50 this past year. I'm doing a startup, in my late 40s, early 50s. But again, if you're not growing, you're dying, and I think that's essential. But even sports, so you can learn marketing by watching sports and how the sponsors engage, and then doing more creative and social campaigns, or the interviews. You could become a better podcaster by watching sports TV or Sports Center. And so I think you can learn from anywhere
with the right lens.
With the right lens.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think is the kind of next big, what's the next big move for Tiicker? You're obviously continuing to get more public companies involved with it. So right now you have a sales force out there talking to these people constantly, I'm sure. And so how do you kind of view the next 3 to 5 years in the kind of the near term of how it's going to look? Yeah,
I think there's two fronts, right? There's more awareness among public companies that this exists. The other is the consumer discovery of, hey, you're right, I do deserve the perks of ownership. I do like rewards.
Yeah.
Why don't I have rewards as an owner? One of the things we're doing, and we're rolling it out next month, is on any public company that you research, there's the kind of the data, the stock chart and the market cap and all the different financials. Those data providers, it's usually one or two data providers that do the back end. Well, one of those is called Benzinga. Benzinga, based in Detroit, very, very successful fintech startup. And we've partnered with Benzinga to push to all of their platforms a perk button. So buy, sell, or perk. So create a ubiquitousness. Is that a word?
Ubiquity?
It's pretty impressive that I just spit that out.
I think it is ubiquitousness.
Yeah,
I'm with it.
But to have on every page a buy, sell, or perk.
Yeah.
And if they don't have a perk, it takes you to would you like to request a perk from this company? If it does have a perk, you have that awareness, and now people start looking for it.
Right.
And so I think that's going to be the big hurdle, is when perks become ubiquitous.
Yeah, it's the expectation.
That's right.
Yeah. And then those emails would get annoying to some of those people until they just add a perk.
Yeah, and the fact is that the average American is a member of 10 loyalty programs. So look in your wallet, look in your online wallet.
Look at your keychain.
Right, yeah. Exactly. So there's all these different things that you're already a member of, but none of them are related to your ownership, which is your highest degree of commitment.
Yeah.
You didn't just buy something, you bought stock, you own it.
Yeah, you care. They have a vested interest in the success of the company.
That's
at
right.
That point.
That's right. So that's going to be more of that discovery. We have some more individual innovations. We're standing up a brand search. So every brand out there that's owned by a public company, you can now do essentially a Google search. That isn't one that exists, but a local example, you might wear Merrell's or Sebagos. Did you know they're owned by Wolverine?
Yeah,
right. So they're a public company. Or you have an Airstream. Well, they're owned by Thor Industries.
Right.
You like Converse. Well, they're not public. Yes, they are. They're owned by Nike. So that discovery of the brands that you love, many of which are publicly traded, and what if I got a discount?
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It's a great idea.
Yeah, it's the best idea I've ever had.
Thanks to Jeff. Or is it not Jeff? Who's your coach?
Jason. Yeah, shout out to Jason.
Big ups to Jason for that, for sure.
For sure.
Otherwise, we'd just be sitting here talking about Lambert and Associate.
I know, how boring. Well, check out his podcast, Beyond Performance. He's awesome.
I'll put that down in the show. I'll put anything that we talked about today. Look in the show notes, folks. Obviously, will be a website for Tiicker, and also we'll put an app download link there as well. But yeah, check. What's his podcast called?
Beyond Performance. Yeah, it's Novus Global is his organization, and he's a startup guy too. He was a single coach, started hiring other coaches. Now there are 50 coaches. He's coaching the biggest athletes and CEOs in the world, and I am honored to be one of his pupils or athletes, as I say.
Yeah.
But it's incumbent on me. He continues to trim his roster. And
so if you're not doing the work, you're out.
I have to show absolutely. Yeah. I have to show up, and one of my goals written down is to be his best client.
Yeah.
And so if I show up in that frame every time, then he in turn says, well, that motivates me to show up the best for Jeff. And so I think that symbiotic relationship is key.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, if you're not ready to hire a coach, you can talk to your friends and your peers about things, and it's good to push each other.
Absolutely.
People. I just talked about this. People like nice lies more than they like negative truths or whatever. That you probably might know the exact quote, but sometimes people just let too much shit slide, basically.
No, and that's one of my so I have a couple sticky notes just kind of reminding me, and I need to refresh them annually. But one is be legendary. And so at the beginning of COVID, I started thinking about how we could respond to COVID. And it was, at the time, it was positively legendary. This idea that when we look back at the decisions we made, we'll say, man, that was legendary. And we grew as an agency 30% during COVID. We launched Tiicker in the midst of COVID. All of our funding went away. And we had commitments, and they all went away, and we had to redo it. But those are the kind of things that we made a decision at the front end. But another is confront for other people's growth. So if I just let it go, I don't care really about your growth.
Yeah, you're just making it easier.
And frankly, it's like parenting. You talk about the kids that are kind of left without discipline or instruction. They like it. They say they like it. They don't. They aren't going to grow
when they're older.
When they're older, they talk about.
Yeah.
I wish someone cared enough to tell me not to do that.
Right.
And so I think that's no one likes to confront. No one likes to be that guy or gal. That's again a learned behavior. But I think confronting is important for other people's growth.
Yeah, and there's a way to do it that doesn't come across as accusatory or offensive or something.
For sure.
Yeah.
And again, another coaching, but asking, do I have permission to give you feedback? And so now it's from a spirit of instruction, support.
Yeah, and helping you.
Right, constructive criticism. But even that phrase takes the tone down.
Yeah,
right.
Kind of lets us down.
Permission to give you feedback. Oh, sure, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
So I think it's how you approach things. Again, all learned behavior. I was an idiot for 20 years as a leader. I was selfish. I did things, I kind of made it up as I went along,
right.
And I left a wake, and it wasn't always a good wake.
Right.
And I want to leave a legacy versus a wake.
Yeah, and especially now that you're dealing with other folks' money, and you're dealing with a bigger team and more, now you can't slip up now.
No, I mean, we have 100 people on the Lambert side. We've got 10 people on the startup side and at Tiicker, and the family of companies that I'm building. It's going to be 200 people by the end of next year, and hopefully 500 people a few years after that.
And that's just the people working for you, not to mention all their families that are relying on them and all that as well. So.
And I think even thinking about the difference between having a revenue or profit goal and having an impact goal.
Yeah.
So I want to create impact, which is the sum of both the things that I achieve and also the things that I inspire.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. So you already mentioned one of your failures, your choice to go
right.
to be a vet. But I imagine you're an open guy. I imagine you've along the way had some big eye-opening experiences that were negative at the time. But as it kind of sounds cliche, but failure is really how you know where you're at.
Yeah.
Because that means you pushed it to the point where you couldn't do it. And a lot of people never do that. They're comfortable the whole time, and then failure doesn't happen, but what do they achieve though?
Yeah.
So do you have some examples of that, or what are some, for the folks listening at home that are going to be inspired by you, because I am, and people are going to be inspired, give them a little bit of, dirt on you that'll help them understand that you can get through that stuff.
Yeah, I think, kind of a few categories. One of the categories is kind of passion investing. So you invest, whether it be around your heart, or you invest in something you think is fun, and you don't really look at the fundamentals of the business or that opportunity. I am very guilty of that over and over again, where I go headlong into something that I think I'm doing good, or I think that this sounds like fun, a restaurant investment, a diverse founder that really wasn't prepared for a large investment,
right?
And not vetting that, this idea that being enthusiastic isn't enough to succeed, and so in some ways I make a terrible VC investor,
right,
because I'm too much of an optimist.
Yeah.
So I think is to have other people's input, and also to be able to put those different lenses on, I think is really critical. I think another failure was really in my leadership. I was a selfish leader for a long time, and a lot of people left the organization, and they say people leave leaders, they don't leave companies.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's even worse when the company is named after me.
Yeah, there's no escaping it.
Yeah, and so I think some of that is a self-awareness of, boy, this is actually how people receive me, that people think I'm a jerk, they think I'm unapproachable, they think I'm too good for them.
Yeah.
And so I think certainly leadership maturation was a big learning. And I think the other piece is really this idea that being all things to all people, that's I get pulled in a lot of different directions.
You can't. Yeah.
You can't. And so I think that's there's a litany of failures around that. Going from one thing to the next, I could list them. We could be here all day talking about my failures.
All right, let's get them out.
Yeah, right. But I think that's the key thing is learning from them. And so I've had some people that have made mistakes that are costly, and I look at that as hey, this cost us $100,000. I just invested $100,000 in your training.
Yeah.
And so just don't do it again. And I think that grace is again a learned trait that is important. But yeah, I mean, I'm too optimistic to be an investor. I'm too arrogant, perhaps, to be the only leader. So I need other good leaders around me.
Right.
I am ultra competitive to the point where it's not healthy. And my mom said at 2 years old I wanted to beat everybody at everything, and it makes me a good athlete. It doesn't make me a good leader. And
right.
So change. But again, we can change these things.
And there's ways to cherry pick the good out of all that too, because being competitive is still necessary in a business world too.
Yes,
because you can't be a pacifist necessarily.
And I was on an investor call today, and this kind of how we show up. So I hear from some people you should have really lofty goals, and I hear from other people, well, lofty goals are unbelievable.
Yeah, under promise, over deliver,
right.
kind of thing.
And so this is the world, and I have to be a chameleon depending on the business. So in Tiicker, the more money we lose, the more our investors are happy. And it's the opposite of the PR marketing agency, where the more money we make, the more valuable we become.
Right.
And so it's really kind of putting on different hats. And I didn't know what that world was like until I got into it. And I think that's again another key learning is listen and build your network with intentionality.
Yeah.
And the fact is that you can get to anybody you want to through one or two connections.
Right.
And
especially nowadays.
Absolutely. And I had a goal of getting connected to Jay-Z. And I got a guy who knows a guy that I had a meeting with his CEO. And these are, you just kind of set these targets for how do I get in the room with smart people, and not to just to fandom and fangirl over it,
to learn.
But to learn. But the key is to bring them something of value.
Of course.
And so I'm going to give first and get later.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's risk with that.
Absolutely.
Personal risk and business risk.
And the risk is rejection, and no one likes that.
But you can deal with it.
You can deal with it, but it is one of the most powerful emotions, negative emotions. It's really hard to overcome. It's why everyone is not in sales. you got to go through a lot of rejections, kiss a lot of frogs before you get that winner.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, it's awesome, man. I'm super excited to see what happens. So I know that every summer you have a pool party, and it's a private thing. And so part of this, I'm giving you this podcast platform, and then in return, I hope I get invited to that one time.
Well,
No,
I think that's fair. I mean, I got invited to your home, so I think the attic.
I won't even go
the
inside
pool
your house.
party,
I'll just stay outside the whole time.
Yeah, the pool party, every year it's a debate of whether we're going to do it again, mostly because I have way too much fun and I amp it up. And so it's like maybe, maybe not. But actually, it may be contingent on one of my goals this year, which is to learn how to DJ.
I have some contacts for you that are very good at it.
I've got my instructor. I think I'm good there.
It's not
really,
Jay-Z teaching you.
It's
that'd
not.
Be cool.
That's a goal. That's a goal. But I think for me, I love. I've always loved music. I have already had my DJ name. I've had it for 25 years. DJ Rain. Let's go.
Making it rain.
Yeah, and I can claim it because it's actually on my original iPod. So those of you
I don't think that holds
know
up in court.
iPod is my
the one that has
my Walkman. How about that? I wrote it on my tapes. Mixtape.
Oh man, mixtapes pulling them off the radio and off CDs. And
absolutely.
stuff?
I had a two cassette deck so I could record from one to the next.
That's beautiful though.
Yeah.
What kind of music do you like to DJ? When you learn how to DJ?
So I'm a EDM, maybe mix in some hip hop. Yeah, I'm.
All right, that gives me some direction now on how to frame the music.
Yeah,
of this
actually,
episode.
so I have a podcast. Would love to have you on it.
Yeah, of course.
It's called UpTiick with 2 I's, of course.
Absolutely.
But the UpTiick podcast, I have an intro that was actually custom DJ'd or custom track that was developed by a guy who's making tracks for Drake. And again, the small world that it is.
You can actually say that
he's the
now.
son of a friend of mine, and he lives out in L.A., but he grew up friends with my son, and so he somehow owed me one. So it's all good.
That's beautiful.
Cash that in.
UpTiick
podcast.
Now, look in the show notes for that, Jeff. I mean, I know you're a busy guy. We covered a lot today. Is there anything else that you think we need to touch on? I mean,
no. I think
give one more kind of last minute pitch about Tiicker in terms of the average person listening to this will not be a public CMO or an investor relations director.
Yeah, it's an everyday strategy. So if you have a phone, or if you have
a stock,
or if you don't have a stock, so you can buy stock for free on Tiicker. So if you're a shopper, if you're a savvy shopper who wants to benefit from being an owner, go to Tiicker.com, Tiicker with 2 I's, or download the app, and then check out Tiicker.com/NFT.
Yeah,
to see
sure.
our NFT that's going to drop in about 30 days. So March timeframe, early March, and excited about everything that's going on. Appreciate you having me on. This is a cool environment and setup.
Yeah, thanks. This inspires creativity. For
and
me,
I'll tell you, my podcast. I've got somebody on later this afternoon, and my setup isn't nearly as cool. So I need a boom mic. I need the whole deal here.
Yeah.
The candle outfit. This is you got it going on.
I know. No matter how many things I get, I'm always like, I need more tripods. And stuff. I need more clips and tape and like. You can plan for everything, and it's Murphy's law.
Absolutely,
kind of
I got stuff. I got a Tiicker logo stuck on my printer, so it makes it look prettier.
Well, honestly though, man, I appreciate you coming on. If you ever need any audio support or something, I'm happy to help you out.
Awesome.
Even if it's just offsite production stuff or whatever. And then in the meantime, I'll just wait for that pool party invite, and we'll go from there.
You got it. Seems like a fair deal.
Thanks, brother. Thanks, Andrew, for hooking us up.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Tiicker.com, baby. Peace out.
See ya.
All right, dude. That's awesome. All right. Well, I'm riding high right now because, as you just heard, I was invited to the pool party. Did some of you detect kind of an immediate invite where Jeff said, yeah, you can come. Yeah, I mean, you let me into your house, you can come. And then he kind of started to backpedal and started to suggest that maybe the pool party wasn't going to happen. I don't know. I'm taking that as an absolute invite. I'm going to start getting this beach body ready so I can make sure that I turn heads at that bad boy. For real, though, thanks, Jeff, so much for coming on the show. I'd be glad to come on to UpTiick, your podcast. You shared so much wisdom with us today. Folks, what'd you guys think? Support this guy, and the best way to do that is to go to Tiicker.com, Tiicker.com. Find out if any of the things that you're already invested in are offering stock perks. And if not, use the platform to request that they start doing that. Do you own Ford? Do you own Wolverine? If you own Whirlpool, these are just a few of the local companies that are on the platform that's going to be continuing to grow. How cool. Is Jeff the next Michigan unicorn? Only time will tell. And now here's the special song just for Jeff, just for Tiicker.
Hit it, Kirk.
What? Hey, that's me. Peace out, everybody.
Yes, I'm just wondering, did you say that was Tiicker with one eye or two eyes?
Two eyes.
Oh, two eyes. Great. Well, then let's do it.
All aboard this Tiicker train, led by my man DJ Rain. Got a couple big ideas up inside his business brain. Talking stock perks and profits and impact.
Giving credit where it's due, talking about his coach Jack.
Jack, baby, living out in Cali, baby. Probably got LeBron James and other folks like that. He coaches them to excellence, just like he does with the Lambo. Talking about JEFF Lambert. All aboard this Tiicker train, led by my man DJ Rain. Got a couple big ideas up inside his business brain.
Talking about everything. Two eyes on the back of his head, just like in the name.
All aboard this Tiicker train, led by my man DJ Rain. Got a couple big ideas up inside his business brain. I just like this man, I like this man. Seems to me that this dude has he thought of everything. Got so many ideas up in his noodle. Speaking of a noodle, how about a pool noodle? Can I come to your party? You won't regret inviting me. I'll bring all sorts of pool toys and diving rings and stuff like these.
Listen, Jeff, I don't even have to really be a guest at your party. You can just have me come and do some work. I could pick up cans or maybe pass hors d'oeuvres, even spread the word about Tiicker.
Listen up my podcast, folks. This dude's got all the dad jokes. Talking sedimentary rock when he was just 9 years old. This dude was a dad before he even was a dad. Just like he had this idea for the Tiicker before anyone else had it. All aboard this Tiicker train, led by my man DJ Rain. Got a couple big ideas up inside his business brain. All aboard this Tiicker train, led by my man DJ Rain. Got a couple big ideas up inside his business brain.
Okay, so that was Tiicker with two eyes. Cool, thank you.